Put this on the table here. And can you just start off by saying your name again?
My name is AmyDi.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, so this is a hard story to know which direction to tell it from, but I guess I'm going to start with this ricevuta, which anybody who's ever been to Italy knows how much documentation you can usually generate for a small transaction, and this is the smallest amount of documentation for the biggest transaction maybe of my life. All it is a ricevuta. All it says is somebody took money from me. It doesn't say why or what I'm going to get for it, and there's no guarantee at all. It's really Italian. So it's really Italian. So when I was growing up, I just adored my grandparents, my nonna and my nonno. Here's a picture of them. I loved them so much. And so what did it mean to me that they were Italian? I don't know, that's my family culture, right? But my grandparents actually, as it turns out, had never been to Italy. So my grandfather was the fifth of 8 children. And he was the first one born here. The first 4 were born in Italy, and then his family came over here, and he was born here. And his father died relatively young, so he was such an honorable, deeply honorable man. He waited many, many years to marry my grandmother until all of his sisters were sort of situated. So when I got a chance to go to Italy my junior year abroad, actually it was at the end of my freshman year of college, I went to Italy without any idea that this was part of my heritage, because I grew up in a family, I kind of call it I-Italian. You know, it's what Italian Americans do. They have their whole thing, but I didn't really think of it as particularly connected to Italy. And I got off the plane in Milan, which is not a place that's particularly beautiful or I'm attached to, it's no part of my history. And I breathed the air and my life just changed forever. I just felt like, oh, there's some part of me that just got woken up by that. And I had this amazing 3 weeks led by this amazing art history professor in Italy, and I just was so inspired. But it didn't necessarily connect it still to my history. But I have, and this is like shortening 20 years, like run away to Italy so many times and more sort of taken in that this is part of my history. And at one point I found the family of my really beloved great-grandmother, Rosa. I have pictures of all of my family here. I have so many. I could show you so many. And I sort of took in more and more that I was Italian, and I always felt like if I could run away to Italy, but, you know, I can't really do that. I'm not Italian. I used to always say if my grandfather had been born just in Italy, I could, you know, but this is a dream I could never realize, to be Italian. But I speak Italian. My little son, I spoke Italian with him. He spoke fluent Italian, and so it was just really in my blood, you know. Mm-hmm. And last year, about a year and a half ago, I was sitting around talking with some people after dinner and saying, oh, I wish I could, you know, there's only some way that I could become Italian. And there's no way I can become Italian. But then I remembered something someone had said to me 20 years ago. And now I've even figured out who that person was. But 20 years ago, someone said to me, oh, there is this kind of a loophole where if your grandfather's family never became naturalized something. And I thought, well, let me just try it. And I found a really nice single mom up in upstate New York who could work from home doing research for me, because we were traveling and I had no base for doing this research. And I kind of said, Cindy, will you just check and see if there's this loophole? And she got back to me 2 days later and said, oh, yes, there is this loophole. But it has to be through the male side of your family, and there's a lot of technicalities. And I said, well, would you do the research for me? And so she did the research for me, and every once in a while she'd send me, and she sent me like the ship's manifest of my great-grandfather's crossing from Naples. She sent me the census, and you could see, and I remember my grandparents talking about Trafford Street in Boston, and you see all the family names there. I mean, all these things are available, and she sent me all this stuff, and I kind of half unconscious that she was going through this, because I think I didn't dare hope that this could lead to anything. I really think I was afraid to hope, because last August I found myself at the window of the Consulate General of Italy in Los Angeles, and I cried through the entire interview in Italian. And I was totally unprepared for how emotional I would be. And I walked up to the window and I said to the woman in Italian, no respect to my husband who's sitting here, but I'm more emotional than the day I got married, because I've wanted this longer, and I never thought I could get here. And I pulled out all the documentation, and it has all the flaws that everybody's documentation had. My grandfather's name is wrong on his birth certificate. That's really hard to work around. And I had all the pictures of everything, and she didn't even want to see them. And she said to me at the end of it, Lei, signora, ha fatto un ottimo lavoro, which is like the most gentle language for that I had done a perfect job. And all I got was this, which is nothing, actually. It's not worth the paper it's printed on, because it's not citizenship, but she took my money. She took about $380 318.4 euros. That's how much she took from me. And maybe this summer I'll get an email from